Some important clarifications on the additional $5,000 in EIDL grant funding, who would be eligible and what the timing is for that, and more details on this document. This is the 600-page document that the House released earlier this week. It's a big bill. It's likely that this will get passed in the House this week. Finally, watch until the end of this quick video because we have a hidden unlisted video. If you want to find out about the extra $500 per week drawing, watch that video. I will link to it near the end of this video. We want to make it a little bit exclusive to give people who really want extra funding to give them a better chance at getting it. So that's near the end of the video. It's unlisted, so the only way you'll get it is if you watch until the end. Let's start with the stimulus check text and what it says specifically about the $1,400 stimulus checks. For those of you following along at home, this is page 454, section 9601, 2021 recovery rebates to individuals. That's what they're calling them, tax rebates in the form of payments to you. Again, something to keep in mind is that all the money that comes back to us, whether it's through EIDL, PPP, stimulus checks, unemployment, it's all our tax money anyway, so it's not exactly free money. You've paid into the system to get it back when you need it the most. That's why we pay taxes. 2021 rebate amount. For the purposes of this section, the term 2021 rebate amount means with respect to any taxpayer for any taxable year, the sum of $1,400 or $2,800 in the case of a joint return. $1,400 multiplied by the number of dependents of the taxpayer for such taxable year. No age limit, any dependent. The taxpayer's adjusted gross income cannot be in excess of $75,000. There are some special rules in special cases such as the joint return or surviving spouse, head of household rules as well. But we've already talked about these income limits. $75K is the income limit for the full amount. So I read through this and I'm not going to go into too many details because frankly, it's not that surprising, so I don't think there's much to point out, but I'm going to keep an eye on it, and of course, if I discover that there's something interesting worth pointing out, I will. Let's go right to the small business funding and back to the targeted EIDL advances. But I'll start at the beginning of the small business section. This is page 309, section 6001, modifications to PPP program. I want to mention this first. It probably won't affect you, but basically it's changed eligibility for certain nonprofit entities for covered loans. Again, it's probably not going to affect you. And by the way, many of you are still waiting for your PPP loan. I'd love to hear in the comments the latest. We may do a survey on this as well tomorrow or the next day. We did a survey that a couple thousand of you answered on Friday asking the question, have you gotten an email from the SBA about the targeted EIDL grant? Speaking of what we are about to talk about. And 25% of you said you have received an email. 75% are still waiting. So most of you are still waiting. No stress there. In yesterday's video, I talked in detail about this section 6002, and what it means. The main takeaway, which is big news, $15 billion for, quote, severely impacted small businesses to enable them to get an additional $5,000. That's on top of the $10,000. After reading this more, it became even clearer that basically the $10K has been the traditional limit, from the CARES Act and from the December legislation. But this new $15 billion is geared towards giving more money, more advance funding to severely impacted small businesses. What is a severely impacted small business? 3 things here. Number 1, you've suffered an economic loss of greater than 50%, as it says right here. Number 2, you do not employ more than 10 employees. And number 3, that you are still a covered entity. Again, this is the frustrating part for many of you, but for you to be eligible, you have to be a covered entity based on the previous bill, and the definition for that is low-income community. So you have to still be in a low-income community. That's the way we read it. The SBA may interpret it differently. Again, this is just legislation. It's not into law yet, so it's not like we can ask the SBA, hey, what about this legislation that's proposed? They're not going to have any opinion on it until it gets passed. But that's our reading of it. Low-income community, suffered economic loss greater than 50%. The current threshold is 30%, and you don't employ more than 10 employees. The current threshold is 300. So it's more targeted to give people a supplemental payment. This is what they call it, supplemental payment. So if you are a hard-hit business and in a low-income community, this is good news for you. Obviously, if you don't know if you're in a low-income community, you can check on our app, trackeidlgrant.com or HelloSkip in the App Store. That's the quickest way to find out, and that's based on the data that we pull in. Of course, the SBA may have different information, but the data we have is publicly available tax information. There's another program that I want to point out, which is basically the Community Navigator pilot program. I think there's around $100 million in this program, if I'm not mistaken. I'll find it in a minute. But basically, it's dedicated resource partners to help people navigate these grants, loans, SBA, etc. It's interesting that it's a lot of funding. I mean, everyone in the YouTube community, for better or worse, is covering this every day. Obviously, a big challenge for you watching is knowing who to trust, who has good information, who has accurate information. So I think this is the attempt by the SBA, which I think is great to see, for them to increase outreach, education, and technical assistance provided by community navigators that target eligible businesses to increase awareness of and participation in programs of the SBA. I mean, the reason I do these videos is for that exact purpose. We want to help people as much as we can, being a small company, but it's good to see that the SBA realizes that it's one thing to allocate funding, it's another thing to ensure that the people who need this funding understand if they're eligible, how to apply. I mean, we get thousands and thousands of questions from you. So I will keep you updated on that, because obviously if this is free resources to work with someone that can say, hey, here's how you fill out the form, that'll be a huge benefit for many of you. Just like what we're doing, they may figure out, oh, there's this grant program or this loan program that is helpful for you. We will keep an eye on that. But here's the appropriations, as I mentioned, $100 million for that, and a little bit more funding for shuttered venue operators as well. So those are a couple worthwhile things to point out. I'm going to keep looking at the text. It's a lot to read and take in, but I just wanted to clarify the targeted EIDL grant piece today and the stimulus piece. And before I talk about this interesting graphic about when we can get back to normal, when will we get total immunity across the US and reach this herd immunity range, I'll share with you the hidden video. The link is on the screen right now, bit.ly/skip-exclusive, bit.ly/skip-exclusive. So type that in your browser and you'll get to see this exclusive video about how to get into our additional $500 per week drawing and earn more money with our referrals. I'm going to end here today because we're seeing good progress on vaccination and the timeline is looking good. There are estimates that, of course, late spring, everyone who wants a vaccine will be able to get one. This is what Biden has said. And there's also estimates that probably in the summer, depending on how things go, we may reach herd immunity range. That'll be total immunity and fully vaccinated people combined to get herd immunity. We'll keep you posted there. Of course, the rolling case count is around 77,000 right now. It's down about 50% over the past 2 weeks. It's really come a long way. It's great to see the progress, and we're moving in the right direction. As always, thank you so much for subscribing to our channel, supporting us, and liking this video and leaving comments. All of it means so much to us. And finally, don't forget to go to bit.ly/skip-exclusive to find out how to get even more of our giveaway money. Stay well, stay healthy, and we'll see you tomorrow.